This will be the last unit, the last lesson in this unit. I know there is another one. Let's quickly go to it. There is a 7.6. I'm not going to expect you to know how to do this. We'll leave it out for the course. You don't need it for grade 12, so don't panic about that. Okay, so we're going to leave that out. But this one's an important lesson, solving rational equations. This is basically algebra, but it's kind of algebra on steroids. There's going to be denominators that have x's in them. Okay, and so we're going to talk about how to do that. A lot of the things we were familiar with, we're going to factor. We're going to find the least common denominator. Okay, we've already done that. We're going to state non-permissible values. We know how to do that. This is the new step. We're going to multiply each term by the lowest common denominator to eliminate denominators. This has always been sort of the strategy when you're solving equations, when you're solving for x and there is something in the denominator. You know, even if we had something like 1/2 x equals 8, our first step was always, let's multiply by 2 so there's no more fraction. Let's do it that way. Okay, so that's going to be our strategy for this. We want to get rid of denominators. Then we'll simplify and solve, and then this is a little bit different. You have to check that your answer is not a non-permissible value. Okay, so let's try one here. All right, the first step says to factor. There's nothing to factor here. Second step says to find the LCD. So what is the least common denominator here? I think it's 10x. So we're going to change all of these fractions to 10x. Okay, what did I multiply by to get to 10x here? I multiplied by 5. So this becomes 5. What did I multiply by here to get 10x? I multiplied by 2x. So this is 4x. What did I multiply by here to get to 10x? Well, I didn't multiply by anything, so that does not change. Okay? So I now have common denominators. If you look up here, the next step is going to be to state the non-permissible values and then multiply by the lowest common denominator. Okay? So at this stage, we'll say x cannot be 0. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 10x. And the reason I do that is it's going to cancel all my denominators. Very quickly, let's just talk about why. What happens if I multiply 10 times 5 over 10x? Sorry, 10x times 5 over 10x. Well, you could actually multiply this and you'd get 50x over 10x, and then you'd simplify and you get 5. Okay, but there's a shortcut. What is 10x divided by 10x? It's 1. And so 1 times 5 is just 5. We're using this to say this 10x will cancel when each term that I multiply by, it will cancel that denominator. And it leaves me with just 5 minus 4x equals 1. And now I'm just going to do good old-fashioned algebra. Divide by -4, x is 1. A quick check. Can x be 1? Yes, it can be 1. It just can't be 0. So there is my answer. And I'm going to put it in a set bracket like that. Okay? Let's try another one. What is the least common denominator here? Well, I think it's going to be x squared. Now, really, you don't need to find the least common denominator if it's not a fraction. Okay, so I'm not going to do it for this one. I'm just going to leave the 6 there. Okay, so what did I do to this fraction? I multiplied by an x. What did I do to this fraction? I multiplied by 1. And what did I do to this fraction? I haven't changed it. Okay? Next step, well, first we should say that x can't be 0. And then we're going to multiply by that least common denominator, x squared. So multiply by this one, multiply by this one, multiply by this one. Here, it's going to cancel the x squared. Here, it's going to cancel the x squared. Okay, so you're just going to have this For the last one, I'm actually going to have x squared there. Okay, because there was nothing to cancel. Okay, so bringing everything to one side, let's go 6x squared minus 5x minus 6. Now we want to factor to figure out what x should be. So let's go 3x and 2x. Let's go plus 2 minus 3. Okay, so 3x plus 2 equals 0. 2x minus 3 equals 0. So x is negative 2/3. X is 3/2. And again, checking our non-permissible value, both those answers are okay. So I'd have negative 2/3 and 3/2. What does this mean? This means those two numbers, if I put it into the original equation, would give me a solution that works. Okay, that both sides would be equal. All right. Let's make it a little tougher by throwing in some binomials. Remember, this is something like that. So what is my least or lowest common denominator? Well, I need an x plus 2, and I need an x minus 3. X plus 2, x minus 3. Okay, what did we multiply the denominator by? Well, we multiplied by an x minus 3, so I have to do the same thing for the numerator. What did I multiply the denominator by in the second one? Multiplied by x plus 2. Okay, before I do anything, let's quickly say x cannot be negative 2. X cannot be 3. Okay, I'm looking at the denominators. And now, what do? Well, I would like to get rid of my denominators. So I'm going to multiply the whole thing by x plus 2, x minus 3. You're going to multiply that by this term. You're going to multiply it by this term. Now really, you don't need to write that out, because what's going to happen, this is going to cancel with the denominators. So you end up with just negative 3x plus 9 equals 2x squared plus 4x. Bring everything over to one side, I get 2x squared plus 7x minus 9. And that's going to be able to be factored. 2x and x. I think I'm going to have plus 9 minus 1. So x is negative 9 over 2 and 1. And looking at my non-permissible values, those are both okay. Okay, just a couple of comments here. Make sure that you keep these zeros here. It has to be an equation. All right, if you notice, every one has an equal sign, has an equal sign, has an equal sign, equals, equals. Must stay an equation. Because if it wasn't an equation, you couldn't multiply by the LCD. That would be changing things. But because it's an equation, we can do the same thing to both sides. All right, let's try this one. What is the LCD? X minus 5. X minus 1. X minus 5. X minus 1. Okay, what did I do to the first fraction? I multiplied by x minus 1. So I'm going to put x plus 2, x minus 1. What did I do to the second fraction? I multiplied by x minus 5. Okay. So very quickly, x cannot be 5 or 1. Right, I'm looking in the denominator for that. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply everything by that lowest common denominator. Okay, which will cancel out my denominators. So I have x squared minus x plus 2x minus 1 equals x squared minus 5x. If I bring everything over, If I take away a negative x squared, the x squareds will cancel. If I add 5x, I'm going to end up with 6x here. Minus 1 is 0, so 6x is 1, x is 1/6. That is not a non-permissible value, so it's good. Okay, is this our last one? No, got a couple more. Alright, let's start by factoring. 7x minus 15. And this becomes x minus 3, x plus 3. This is x minus 3. What would be the least common denominator? Well, I need an x minus 3 and I need an x plus 3. So x minus 3, x plus 3. I did not change my first fraction, but the second one I definitely changed. I multiplied by x plus 3. Okay, so x cannot be plus or minus 3. I'm going to multiply by the least common denominator. Getting a little lazy there, I'm just writing LCD. Okay, that's going to cancel out here. When I multiply this fraction and when I multiply the second fraction, it's going to cancel out that. So I have 7x minus 15 is x squared plus 3x minus 2x minus 6. So 0 is x squared minus 6x. Now that's 3x minus 2x is x, and if I take away 7x, I get minus 6x. And then if I add 15, I get plus 9. So 0 is x minus 3, x minus 3. So x is 3. But if I look at my non-permissible values, it says x cannot be 3. Why can't it be 3? Well, if there's a 3, then I would get a 0 in the denominator. This would equal 0. You can't have 0 in the denominator. What does this mean? This means the solution must be rejected. Okay? And so we would say no solution. Okay? A couple more examples. Nothing much different here. We'll start by factoring. And usually there is a factor that's in common. I'm telling you guys, it shouldn't get really ugly. You shouldn't end up with x cubes all over the place. Most of the time these are fairly nice looking fractions. Okay, so I can see that my least common denominator is x minus 7, x minus 5, so make them both the same. I did not change the first one, but the second one I multiplied by x minus 7. Okay, x cannot be 7 or 5. I'm going to multiply the whole thing by the least common denominator. And I end up with negative 10 equals x squared minus 7x. This can be factored to x minus 5, x minus 2. So x is 5 or 2. But looking here, I have to reject that answer. Okay? Just to be clear, why are the answers 5 and 2? Well, if I want this to equal 0, that means either x minus 5 equals 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. So that's where I'm getting 5, and that's where I'm getting 2. Alright, last one for this unit. Looks a little more complicated, but it's the same idea. Okay, I'm going to put an x plus 6 here. I got x plus 4 here. And what do you know, when you factor this, you get x plus 4 and x plus 6. How convenient. So how do I make these lowest common denominators? Well, this one needs an x plus 4, and this one needs an x plus 6. So what have I done to the first fraction? Well, there was an x plus 1 there, but I multiplied by x plus 4. What did I do to the second fraction? There was an x minus 2 here, but I multiplied by x plus 6. And what did I do to the third fraction? I didn't change it. Okay? So, x can't be negative 6, negative 4. Let's multiply by the LCD. It's going to eliminate each one. So then I'm going to have x squared plus 4x plus x plus 4 plus, so that's this plus here, x squared plus 6x minus 2x minus 12 equals 11x plus 32. So I'll get 2x squared, 5x, 11x, 9x, minus 8 is 11x plus 32. So then 2x squared minus 2x minus 40 equals 0. Okay. Can I factor this? Well, I can divide everything by a 2. X squared minus x minus 20. Factor this, I get x minus 5, x plus 4. So x is 5 and negative 4. Checking my non-permissible values, I can't have a negative 4. Okay? So, time for some homework. There's also stuff on the My site. Okay, there's also a review on page 606. And then you can do the practice test. And then you can submit a test to me. Remember, there are no word problems, so even if there's a word problem on the test, don't worry about the word problems. Okay, that's the end of Unit 7. Again, if you're having questions, please contact me. Use email, try the Microsoft Teams chat. I will try to help you the best I can. Make sure you do the test. I want to keep up to date with your progress. Okay? Good luck.